Hello everyone! If you're new here, what's up? Welcome to my channel. My name's Elise. If you're not new, welcome back. It's good to see you. Thank you all for clicking on this video and joining me today in this BOOKMAS journey. It's been a wild ride, but today's video we are going to be doing a series update. So if you watched this video, I posted it earlier this year about all of the series that I'm currently in the middle of and whether or not I'm going to continue those series. Well, since then, I have an update from the series that I have read and completed since then, from series that I have continued, some series that I have started, and some that I have started but I am not going to continue. So we're doing a bit of an update to add to that last video. Let's do it. First, because it makes me feel accomplished, I want to talk about the series that I have completed this year. I'm very proud of myself. I have completed 11 series since that last video with a total of 24 books read to complete them. The first series that I am going to be mentioning is Brier U by L. Kennedy. I had to read the last book, The Dare, to finish that series, and I finished it very recently. Brier U is a new adult hockey romance series, but spicy. It was very fun. I'm glad I read it. I've heard a lot of people mention though that the Brier U and the Off-Campus series is a great place to start off with newer, spicy sports romances. And I have to agree because I've read some others since then and appreciated them a little bit more. But if you are just starting college or in college or just graduating from college, I really think that you'll appreciate these books and that the problems that arise in these books will resonate a little bit more with you than for maybe a little bit older readers. Look at me aging myself. I'm only 28. I definitely would have appreciated those problems a little bit more when I was, you know, younger, in my early 20s than I do now. It was still a fun series. The next series that I completed is the Twisted series. Since that video, I have completed Twisted Hate and Twisted Lies, both my favorites of the series, with Twisted Lies being my absolute favorite. I freaking love Christian and Stella. They are awesome, and Christian is my new book boyfriend. This series was great. I think the series just got better and better as it progressed. I love this world. I just feel like Anna Huang has such a great way of telling a story and of explaining the world in a way that you just like don't want the book to end. Hence her books getting thicker and thicker as they went. The situations that arose between the characters and the problems and issues that they dealt with just felt relatable, even though they really weren't relatable things. Like in one story, she has a stalker. One story, you know, she has to steal art or someone steals art from her. You know, there's billionaires involved and things like that. So not necessarily realistic, but you still felt like you understood what was going on. You just feel so connected to these characters afterwards. Next we have Molotov Obsession by Anna Zaras. This is a duology and I completed the second book, Angel's Cage, not too long ago. It's not necessarily a series that I recommend. It's pretty spicy, it's dark, it is meant to be a mafia romance, but Anna Zaras does a really good job of making not a lot, you know, like of action or anything really happening between the characters seem like a lot and seem very active, and then after the fact you think about it and it's like, what did they actually do? How long did this take place? So not my favorite series, and I'll leave it at that. The next series that I reread and completed was the Percy Jackson series by Rick Riordan. I did a whole reread of the series and I loved it again. A 5-star series for me. This was so delightful. I tandem read and listened to it, and the narrators were pretty freaking good. Pretty fun. It's a Greek mythology retelling about an 11-year-old boy, and by the end of the series I think he's 15 or 16. Hilarious, fast-paced, action-packed, lots of Greek mythology references and characters. Very found family. Continuing after the Percy Jackson series, I also reread and completed the Heroes of Olympus series. Now, I have read that entire series, but I personally only remembered the first 2 books of the series. And then the last 3 books, it was like reading brand new for me. I only remembered very small snippets of the story. So it was kind of like I was rereading the series again for the first time. The first 2 books I loved, but then the last few books, it's just like, good lord, give these kids a break. I think if I had taken a break in between the 2 series, I would have appreciated it more, but I was just so sad for these kids. Like, let them rest and have some like normal kid time. It was still really great revisiting this series. This is my favorite of that series. It was a good time. The next series that I completed is the Frost and Nectar series. It is a fantasy duology about this human No, she's a fae, but she lives in the human world for reasons unknown. And then there is this kind of what they call like a selection-esque competition to marry the king of this fae kingdom, and it's like televised and everything, and somehow she gets invited. I don't really remember how. It was just all over the place. The world and the magic system didn't make a lot of sense to me. I feel like there were some things that the author invested in and then we didn't see a conclusion to that thread of the story. That's really all I have to say about it. Not for me. Then we have the Dreamland Billionaire series. I finished it up with Final Offer by Lauren Asher. It follows these 3 brothers whose grandfather passes away at the very beginning of the first book, leaves them kind of some tasks to complete, some personal tasks to complete in order to gain their billion-dollar inheritance. And so this last book follows the middle brother, Cal, who suffers with addiction, and his kind of personal task is to go back to the summer home that he used to love and go to all the time, where his best friend and ex-girlfriend used to live and stuff, and to kind of go through that house and sell it and repair his relationship with Alana, his previous best friend and ex-girlfriend. So I really appreciated the inside look into his struggle with addiction. I will say Alana was not my favorite character. If you want to know more in-depth thoughts, I talk about it in this reading vlog. I go very into depth in that reading vlog. But overall, the series was a 4-star for me. I enjoyed it. My favorite parts were in Dreamland because it's very Disney-esque and I used to work at Disney. Last year, I restarted listening to the Throne of Glass series. I've read the entire series several times, but it was my first time listening to the series. So I don't know how to categorize that. Like, I re-listened, but I've never listened to it before, but I've read it before. So anyway, I listened to the entire series and I finished listening to that series earlier this year. I listened to Empire of Storm, Tower of Dawn, and Kingdom of Ash this year. Last year was when I focused on most of the rest of the series, and I have to say listening to it added a whole different element. I think listening to it forced me to think about the details and what was going on a little bit more, because I consumed it at a little bit slower pace. Because if I read it, I can just dash through the entire thing and not necessarily absorb as much from it. But listening to it, I was able to absorb every little detail and it was just great. I think I'm going to reread the ACOTAR series next. I don't know, maybe Crescent City, but I hear that there's going to be more books than just 3 books in the series, which I kind of had guessed was gonna happen, but I was hoping it wouldn't happen. But with how things have been going with Sarah J Maas, I figured that 3 books wouldn't be enough for her. So oh well. The next series that I completed finally was the Stay a Spell series by Juliet Cross. I read the 6th and final book in the series, Grim and Barrett. It was very cute. It was not my personal favorite of the series, but I thought it was a good conclusion to the series and I really enjoyed the final epilogues. I liked that the final epilogue included all of the characters of the story. That made my heart really happy. All of the books have their own chaotic elements, but it was just like boom, 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 you know? Anyway, I would like to one day collect physical copies of that series because it has become one of my favorite series that I've read to date. Next, we have the Steminist novellas by Ali Hazelwood. I did finish the 3rd book in the series, the last one in that series of novellas. It was fine. It was actually my favorite of the novellas. I think because I read them right off of reading Love on the Brain, they felt very on the nose. They just felt so similar to Love on the Brain, those characters, that I didn't enjoy it as much. So I took a bigger gap between reading the 3rd one and I enjoyed it a little bit more. Then we have the 6 of Crows duology. I finished it by reading Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. This series, man. Oh, it was a good conclusion, although there was one thing at the end of this book that was just, it was just too much. I cannot wait to continue with the Greaverse series. I don't know if you can see over here, but I have King of Scars and Rule of Wolves like right over there. So I'm very ready to continue with this overall world. that is it for the series that I've completed that I remember. Honestly, there are so many books that I've consumed this past year and so many videos that keeping up with it is kind of difficult, but I think that's all of them that I've completed this year. Next, let's talk about some series that I have continued since talking about them in that video. There may be a little bit of overlap. I apologize if there is. First, I have read 2 books from the Wings of Fire series. I believe there's 13 or 14 books in that series total. So I read book 7 and book 8. This was not my favorite, but I loved reading about Peril. She's actually in some of the first books of the series, so it was really nice for her to get her own story. I'm also currently in the middle of the 9th book as well, so hopefully by the time this video is up, that book will be done, and I will have completed 3 more books from that series. Then I have read 2 more books from the Prime Mating Agency. We have I Married a Naga, which I think is one of my top reads of the year. You guys, that book was so fun. I love those characters and their relationships so much. And then we have I Married a Birdman, which wasn't as good as I Married a Naga in my personal opinion, but I still really enjoy that world and that series. I can't wait to continue it. I have the next 2 books ready on my Kindle to read when I have the chance. Then we have The Love Wager, which is the 2nd book in the Mr. Wrong Number series. Now, I wasn't sure if I should put this in the completed category or not, because I have completed the series up to date. I just don't know if she's going to continue writing more books in this series or not. I feel like she is. I don't know if I heard that or if that's just a hunch. So I put it in the continued pile. I don't know. Let me know what you think I should have put it in the comments, if it's a completed series or a continued series. Anyway, this was very cute. Friends to lovers, fake dating, one bed trope, all the tropes really, but it was really fun. It was fun until the half, and then the last half was just like delightful. Then we have Tales from the Cafe by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. This is part of the Before the Coffee Gets Cold series. I enjoyed this one a lot. It was just so cozy and sweet. I almost enjoyed it more than the first book, because the first book I read, I listened to it on audio, and the lady who narrated, her voice is great, but she took long pauses in between words and sentences, and my brain could not handle it. Ooh, it like gives me the chills just thinking about it. So I had a much more enjoyable experience with this book. I just love this cafe. It's so sweet and cozy, and I love the lessons that our characters learn from these stories. It's just delightful. I can't wait to continue this series. Actually, one of the books from the series is on my December TBR. We'll see if I get to it. So that's it for the series that I have continued reading. Now for the series that I have we have series that I started reading that I definitely want to continue and finish reading that series. So let's look at the first ones. First, we have Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. I read this recently and I absolutely adore it. The prequel story just came out previous to this, and I will absolutely be reading it. Then we have the House Switch series by Delamock. I read the first book recently and absolutely loved it. There are 3 books in the series, and I will be reading all of them. Then we have Shades of Magic by V.E. Schwab. I read the first book, A Darker Shade of Magic, and I really liked it. I'm really intrigued by this story. I love that it is not super focused on romance, but you can tell that there might be a subplot of romance later in the series. There's lots of action and intrigue. The world building and like the main purpose of the story is not revealed to me yet, but I'm intrigued and invested enough to want to read more to find out. There are 3 books currently in the series, and I will be continuing them. Then we have the Empyrean series by Rebecca Yarros. I read the book Fourth Wing, the first book, and really enjoyed it. Probably one of my top reads this year. And I have the second book on my shelves, but it's just not a huge priority for me right now. I also know that it ends on a cliffhanger, and there's like 5 books that will be out in the series, so I'm just not in a rush to read it, but I will be continuing this series. Then we have the When in Rome series by Sarah Adams. I read Practice Makes Perfect, which is the second book in the series, and I don't know if I should put this in the completed or the continued section. Again, let me know what you think down below, but this series is completed up to date, but I do know that she's going to have 2 more books in the series, so I wasn't sure where to put it. Anyway, I'm really enjoying it. I will be continuing this series. This one wasn't as highly rated for me as When in Rome was. I really loved When in Rome. This one had some like pretty cringy moments in my opinion, but I still really enjoyed it. I love the writing style, I love the slow burn, I loved these characters and I love them together. Then we have Lore Olympus by Rachel Smythe. I love this series so much. I actually read this series on webtoons before it was a physical book, so it's been really fun rereading the series in like a physical format. I have currently read 3 of the books, and right now there are 6 volumes out. I think that there's probably going to be at least 12 one day. Not yet obviously, but at least. Then we have the Wilmont Sisters by Chloe Lassay. I've read Two Wrongs Make a Right. I have the second book, but I haven't gotten a chance to read it yet, but it is an absolute must. I loved this book a lot. Another book that made the top reads of the year. Stay tuned for that video soon. But yeah, this book has great representation and I loved the communication in this story, so I can't wait to continue it and read the second book. Then we have the Greaverse. I know I already mentioned Six of Crows, but I'm a little confused with how this is being marketed, because like Six of Crows is its own series, but then also now they're kind of like putting it all together and calling it the Greaverse series, so I'm not sure what to call it. Anyway, I read Demon in the Woods. It was a graphic novel. It was really interesting seeing more about the Darkling and his past and kind of what led him down the path that he was on. That was interesting. It was a good read. Then we have the Women of Troy series by Pat Barker. I read The Silence of the Girls this year and I really enjoyed it. Kind of a tough read, but it was very fascinating. I loved seeing things from Briseis' point of view, and I believe the next book is from Briseis' point of view as well. It talks more about Troy after the downfall, I believe. I've read this one. There's one more out, and then Pat Barker is currently working on the 3rd right now. Then we have the Girls Ive Been by Tess Sharp. This has recently turned into a series. I read it earlier this year and it was not. Then I guess they just recently released that Tess Sharp is going to have the next book come out, also from Nora's perspective. This is about a girl who was raised kind of as a con artist. Her mom was a con artist, so she used Nora, or whatever girl she had groomed her to be, to help her with her cons. And so now Nora is, you know, away from her mom, trying to walk away from her past, but circumstances kind of keep leading her to have to use those skills that she's learned as a con artist. So I'm really excited to see where this story continues and how it continues, because The Girls Ive Been was one of my favorite reads of the year. Okay, the next few series are series and books that I really enjoyed, but again, they're not like the highest priority to finish. I'll get there when I get there and if I get there. For example, the first book that I have listed is the Harmony series by Jodie Thomas, and this has 9 books in the series. And while I really enjoyed this book, I'm not going to go dive headfirst into a 9-book series. I'm just going to pick them up slowly as I go. This was actually the 4th book in the series, and I was really impressed because I didn't feel like I was lost. Jodie Thomas did a good job of kind of informing us of some situations that happen while being vague, but not too vague. This was a really good read. I really enjoyed it, but yeah, 9 books. That's a lot to invest in. Then we have Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. I just finished this recently. It was a very fun read. This just recently was announced that it's going to be a series as well, and we're going to get a story from Julian's perspective. I don't know if it's the same timeline, but from his perspective, or it's like his own story. I'm not really sure, but that's going to be coming out in the near future, and so obviously it's not out yet, so it's not going to be like a top priority for me. Then we have the Outer Limits Quadrant. I read the first book of this series quite a few months ago, and I was pleasantly surprised. It was one of those ebooks that you can get free on like Stuff Your Kindle free day, and I tried it out because it was science fiction and I was kind of feeling a romantic sci-fi book to read, and it was so fun. I really liked where the world was going. I liked the romance. I was very impressed with the writing style, and so I want to read the rest of the series. However, that was the first book I read by that author, and so I don't really know if I want to fully commit to the rest of the series, but I definitely want to give it another try and see if I enjoy it just as much as I enjoyed the first book. Then we have the Vega family love stories. I read the first book this year with A Proposal They Can't Refuse. The second book came out very recently as well. I don't know if I love the path that the second book is going, but I definitely want to give it another try. Like, you know when you read the back of the books and you're just kind of like, That's kind of how I felt. But I think because I loved this book so much, I think that I definitely will give the second book a try. It's just not at the top of my list. Then we have a Texas Rose Ranch series by Katie Grakowski. I can't remember if I put this in my series video previous to this. However, I did start this series. It was gifted to me by the author and by Pierre by the Books, and I enjoyed it. It was a fun, light, fast read, and I definitely want to try and get to the other books. There are currently 5 books in the series, but not the top priority, just when I want like a cute little Western palette cleanser. Then we have Stephen Fry's Great Mythology series. I have read the first book, Mythos, and then I own the second book called Heroes, and then there's a third book either out or coming out soon called Troy. I want to read Heroes, naturally. However, I feel like the story of Troy and of the Trojan War is a little overdone, so I haven't decided on whether or not I want to read that one yet, and I believe he's working on a 4th book currently as well. Then we have the Vine Witch series. This only has 3 books in the series, and I surprisingly enjoyed The Vine Witch. It was a relatively short story, a historical fiction story about a witch, but her powers are tied to a winery, and so I really enjoyed that aspect of things. There was a little bit of mystery, and I enjoyed that too, and then at the end it got really fast paced. It was like, the shift was a little wild for me, but there are only 3 books in the series. I've read one already, and they're pretty short, so I might give the other 2 a try. Now we're moving on to the maybe. I'm undecided if I'm going to continue them. I might continue them if the circumstances align. First we have Skin of the Sea. I read the first book of this. It wasn't my favorite. It was more the writing style than it was the story. And there were some pacing issues as well, but I love the concept. And I loved the lore and the mythology behind it. That was very fascinating for me. So I'm thinking about giving the second book a try, but I think I want to read it physically so that I can skim if I need to, and probably borrow it from the library. Then we have The Calloway Sisters by Krista and Becca Ritchie. The reason that I'm unsure about this is because this is a spin-off series from the Addicted series, and like there are a few of the Addicted series, then there's the Calloway Sisters book, and then there's another Addicted book, and then there's more Calloway Sisters book. So the timeline is like all wrapped up in the Addicted series, and I haven't read that series, and I haven't decided if I want to commit to it because it's so long. This one's also long. There's 5 books in the series. However, I really enjoyed it. I think it was like a 4.25 star read for me. It was so dramatic, but I just freaking loved Rose. I loved Connor, and I loved Rose and Connor together. So I'm undecided. It's just so much to commit to. I don't know. To be determined. Then we have the Hot and Hammered series by Tessa Bailey. I read the first book in the series, and it was enjoyable. It was cute. A fun, cute little romp. That was it. So maybe if I need a palette cleanser, I'll jump to that, but I have so many other books that I could palette cleanse with. That sounded really weird. Then we have Crazy Royal Love by Melanie Summers. I read this ebook and I don't know how I feel about it because I own the other 2 books. I bought them like in a set, but I didn't love the first book because our main female character is very juvenile. She is in her 20s or something, but she acts like a 17-year-old. So that wasn't my favorite, but maybe I'll give it one more try and see if it gets a little better. Now moving on to the no's. I will not be finishing the series. I tried the first book in the series. Not for me, and that's okay. First we have the Law and Ornament Shifter series. This was actually really funny and sweet, but like weird. It was about a flamingo shifter who makes lawn ornaments, and there was like this mystery element, and they were like snowed into this building. It was cute. Like honestly, I was pleasantly surprised, but I'm not going to be reaching for the rest of the series. Then we have the Well Met series. I'm not sure if that's what this series is called. Not my favorite. I didn't love the conflict. I did not like the communication between our 2 main characters. I do hear the series gets better as it continues, so maybe I'll give it one more try, but yeah, not really looking to finish the series. Then we have Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. This actually has like 4 other books and like more short stories coming out, and while it was cute, I loved Wes. I just don't think I'll be continuing the series. Then we have Tokyo Ever After. I was so looking forward to this book. Not for me. Just again, like kind of the juvenile characters. Elise in high school would have loved this book, but I'm not in high school anymore. That was a decade ago. Just not for me at this age. Then we have Pax. Not for me. I think that the story is like told from the fox, so it's a little more clinical, and the syntax is different when it's the fox's point of view, which is fine, but it's very dry. The story was very dry. And I messed up because I read the second book first. My bad. But I will not be continuing the series or reading the first book. Then we have Camille Creek. I accidentally read the second book in the series. I believe that there are 5 in the series now. I like the concept of it, but the execution was not my favorite. And I thought earlier in the year that I might give it another try, but I think I'm good. I think I'm good. There are other monster romance books that I enjoy more and would probably rather devote my attention to. Then we have Loveboat Taipei. There are currently 3 books in the series. One just released in November. It was fun. I did enjoy it. It was like a 4-star read for me, but I don't know why I just don't want to finish the series. And the point of view is different in the rest of the series. They have different main characters in the first book. And the next book in the series is from a character that I don't like. And I know she probably gets her redemption. I'm just not interested. Okay, my friends, that is a series update from the last series video. It's been a really great reading year. I am very proud of myself for completing some series, for continuing some series, and for trying some new ones out and trying out new authors and new storylines. It's been a good time. If you made it this far, thank you so much. You are awesome. Leave a little, like a list emoji for my list. Also, if you made it this far and you aren't subscribed, please consider subscribing. We would love to have you join our bookish fam and talk about books together. Alright, my friends, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this series update. It is very satisfying to me, all of these lists and numbers and data and all of that information. So I hope you enjoy them as much as I do. I know I'm a little bit of a nerd. I hope you're doing well whenever and wherever you're watching this. Happy holidays, sending you good vibes, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, everyone.